Sure we have quorum. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is quorum, right? One.
Yes.
Oh, we have way more. Okay. 5. Yeah, there we go. Getting there. Is one of those for me?
Yes.
Sweet. All right. Good evening and welcome to this April 27th, 2026 school committee meeting. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2026, this meeting of the school committee will be conducted via hybrid participation. We will post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. Superintendent, can you call the roll?
Good evening, everyone. Through the chair, President Davis.
Here.
Member Piton. Member Lippens.
Here.
Member Eldridge.
Present.
Member Green.
Here.
Dr. Stellman.
Here.
Mayor Wilson.
Present.
Member Piton.
Here.
Dr. Ackman.
Present.
With 8 members present, we have quorum.
Okay. We're going to have a moment of silence and salute to the flag.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I do not see the students. I don't see their names up, so I surmise that the student reps aren't coming today. So we are going to go to public comment. If you don't mind granting me a moment, I need to find my language for public comment. I will say everyone who's speaking will get 3 minutes. Okay. Welcome to public comment. Each person speaking will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Please state your address. It is really difficult to hear myself. Is there something we can do about that? Thank you. Please state your address, or if you are a City of Somerville or a Somerville Public Schools employee, your role within the district. Let's see, it's not a dialogue, engagement. School committee members will not respond during the meeting, but may reach out after. Please share any comments you have in writing after the fact. And the chair has the right to terminate speech that could cause imminent harm or constitutes a true threat. That is what I've done from memory. We're going to do my best with that. All right, so we have in person, we have Andrew Cannon and Julia Dolan, and then virtually we have Jess Perez Adams. Andrew? Sorry, you can come to the podium. I apologize. I assumed you had been here before.
No.
You're welcome to the podium. Thank you. We're so glad you're here. Welcome to the podium. When you start speaking, if you don't mind mentioning your address, and then the timer will start and you'll have your 3 minutes. We good?
Good.
All right, fire away.
92 Marshall Street. Good evening. My name is Andrew Cannon, resident in Ward 4. and proud father to a 6-year-old with a physical disability. I'm speaking in support of tonight's resolution put forward by Member Bitone, and we want to thank him for his allyship to children with disabilities and their families. As you can imagine, talking about inaccessibility and exclusion is something that's really hard for my wife and I, but we also recognize how important it is to share our lived experiences, even if it's only, even if it only shines a dim light on what it can feel like for families like mine. Being part of this world of disability for the past 6.5 years, we have learned so much. Unfortunately, a part of learning process has included moments of exclusion because of inaccessible spaces. We've taken our daughter to playgrounds that are not accessible, and the best way I can describe what we feel is anxiety and overwhelm. Thinking, how do we make this somewhat enjoyable for her? And we try to facilitate play and connection and planning our exit in a way that doesn't make her feel badly. And for our daughter, a quietness, a shyness that is typically for her because she cannot move freely throughout the playground and connect with peers. Versus when we arrive at the accessible playgrounds, our arrival is typically met with excitement and a feeling of belonging, even if it's never acknowledged by any of us. Our daughter can play with her peers at eye level, have different activities to choose from. She is one of the kids, one of the group. We want to mention how proud we are of the City of Somerville for the creation of what will soon be our first ever inclusive playground at the front lot of John F. Kennedy School. There is so much anticipation and excitement about the playground, and we're thrilled to be able to have things like accessible recess, a playground for birthday parties, and a playground to house accessible summer recreation camps. In years past, through our advocacy, we've been told that Somerville doesn't have the space to meet playgrounds accessibility, but we must not accept that, because the other option is leaving the kids on the sidelines to be quiet, to plan their exit, and to teach their peers that disabled peers don't belong here. Thank you for hearing my comments tonight and for committing to making Somerville schoolyards welcome spaces for every child, regardless of their abilities. I want to end by quoting our Mayor, Jake Wilson: "The ADA is the floor and not the ceiling." Thank you.
Thank you. I do hope you submit that in writing to us. Thank you. Julia?
Hi, my name, excuse me. Hi, my name is Julia Dolan. I live at 93 Jakes, and I'm a teacher at Next Way Full Circle. I rise to thank the school committee and the superintendent for fighting against cuts to our school budget, and to read a statement from my colleague, Liz Gillot, the clinical coordinator at our school. She says, speaking particularly about the cuts to BAM and WOW funding, she says, "I'm very concerned about the possibility of budget cuts next year, as we already work very hard as a team to meet the needs of our traumatized teens on a daily basis, or even moment to moment. My clinical team is constantly triaging crises and juggling the many needs of our students simultaneously. I have also worked very hard over the last few years to integrate additional therapeutic supports and agencies in ways that our students can realistically access and benefit from. As an example, I've worked with the BAM and WOW programs to build relationships, structure, and routines for our highest risk and highest need population. And now, years in, the impact and success they are having is wonderful to see. I believe it is so important to have long-standing, predictable supports for our city's students, especially in terms of counseling and therapeutic supports. There's often so much staff turnover and other logistical and financial barriers that remove access. I believe it is on us to provide equitable services and follow through on our promises in these areas. Don't allow cuts that stop access to these programs." Thank you very much, and thank you for continuing to consider a level funding budget and not cutting these services.
Thank you so much. That concludes our in-person public comment. We have one virtual, Jess Perez-Adams. Let's find out if we can hear your voice. Feel free to test out.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jess Perez Adams. I live at 3 Porter Street. I'm a Somerville parent of 3 kids with different needs. Kennedy, a PTA officer, and a CPAC officer. I want to start by expressing genuine gratitude for Member Baton's resolution that will be read for the first time tonight. It reflects thoughtful leadership and a clear commitment to inclusive design, not just as compliance, but as intention. And I want to especially acknowledge the care that went into its development. I also want to be clear about what inclusion must mean in practice. Inclusion cannot stop at physical design. We can build accessible, well-designed spaces and still fail the students inside of them. Inclusion is about whether students can meaningfully access their education regardless, academically, socially, and functionally, and whether they receive the supports they need to do so. That requires more than physical design. It requires systems, staffing, process, and accountability. The school committee's own policies commit the district to equitable access and to ensuring that all students receive the supports necessary to participate meaningfully in school. That standard has to guide how we define success. Recently, I heard it said that Somerville is lucky to be delivering level service now and for next school year, but we need to be honest about what level service currently represents. Right now, level service includes a needs assistance designation in special ed, ongoing reports of missed or inconsistent services, and decisions where access to evaluation, eligibility, or services may be constrained by capacity and budget, as well as issues of students of different visibilities within their disabilities are able to access their education. That is not a stable foundation for inclusion, and we're seeing it play out in real time. Families navigating AIM and their program changes are raising concerns about whether decisions are grounded in student-specific data and IEP processes are being followed, and whether environments are ready to meet student needs. These concerns are not separate from this resolution. They are a test of it. We also know that sustaining inclusion requires more than level service. It requires investment in staffing, intervention, and the infrastructure that allows students to access curriculum. So my ask is this: as school committee moves this resolution forward, please treat it as an operational standard and not an aspirational one. Apply it to current decisions, apply it to placement and program design, and apply it to budget priorities. Apply it to how families are included in the process, because inclusion, if it's going to mean anything, has to be visible not just in what we build, but how we decide, how we resource, and how we show up for students. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, to everyone who spoke, we appreciate it. You know, the foundation of our democracy is the voices lifting up. So thank you for taking the time. We deeply appreciate it. Feel free to email this to us. I think it's s_c@k12.somerville.ma.us. We appreciate it. Okay. I'm going to jump to, we're going to Roman numeral 4, approval of minutes from our March 16th meeting. Do I have a motion? So moved. Second. All right, a motion by Member Green, seconded by Member Bitone. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we're cooking with gas, thank you. We're moving on to Roman numeral 5's report of the superintendent. Superintendent?
Thank you through the chair. And I also will echo those words that it is great to hear from the community, and that will keep us grounded as well as very attuned to the needs of our members. So thank you. So I wanted to start tonight with good news. I don't know if you are aware, but our robotics team is heading to the World Championships, and woohoo! My understanding is that that is after they won the competitive division of the New England Championships that was early this month. So really excited. Tonight you will get to make history by approving their request for a field trip. I know it was done last minute because we were not expecting, or we were expecting, but we didn't know that we were heading in that direction. So you will get to hopefully approve that field trip, and I'm assuming you will. I also want to thank Laura Peters, Jason Burns, and Jose Saravia. Those are some of the main support teachers that are working with our students. And again, this is a big deal. I think this competition will put them in front of kids from across the globe. And we are really excited. Congratulations to and good luck to the Highlanders. So thank you. And the next celebration, if you will, is a celebration in regards to two special days that are coming up. We have on May 1st, we have National Principals Day. And the week after, on that Monday, we have the Teacher Appreciation Week. So we are thrilled and excited to recognize their commitment, their work, and the fact that we are the ones who set up policies. We are the ones who, in some degree, tell our members what to do, and they are the ones who do the day in and day out of the work. And so we're really proud for the work that they do every single day. So please join me on thanking them for their hard work. So, and I know that usually that's not the school committee, but the PTA are always supporting the lunches for our teachers. So hopefully we can also do something similar for our principals. So we'll see what we can do. But again, this is an important thing to recognize. As we know, they are the ones who actually do the work in our buildings. With that, I'm going to switch to the next part of our conversation, which is our improvement plans. And so before we get into the first report, I want to begin by acknowledging our principal, Isabel Barros, who has served as the Early Childhood Center, as the principal at the Early Childhood Center in an interim capacity this year. So we are so grateful for her leadership, for her commitment to the school community, and we are proud that she officially will be in the role of principal beginning the upcoming school year. So we're really excited about that. And so, Principal Barros, can we have you at the front of the podium? And again, welcome. And please walk us to the school improvement work that you're doing with your community.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. And I click using this, or you click?
I think Amara does it. You just say next slide, if that's okay.
Perfect. There's
Thank
a clicker
you.
here, so I was like,
Oh.
all right, good evening, everybody. I'm really happy to be in community with all of you. My name is Isabel Barros. I'm the principal at the Michael E. Capuano School, and I'm here to present our school improvement plan update, of course, and share some successes and opportunities for our Capuano Cubs. Next slide. So I just want to share our vision, mission, and core value and just highlight a few key terms and phrases. We are a school that is dedicated to our students, of course. We empower each child to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. That's through personalized supports and equitable access to rich learning opportunities, and we really aim to build a strong foundation for lifelong curiosity, confidence, and growth in our students. We also really recognize parents and caregivers as their child's first teacher and encourage their active involvement in their child's education, both at home and at school, and I would add in the community as well. It's really important for us that our students are leaving, because they're only with us for 1, 2, maybe 3 years, with those really early foundational literacy skills, and that our families, many of which it's their first experience in the district, leave with a really positive experience. Next slide. But who are the Cubs? There are about 250 of us. The majority of our students are in pre-K, 60 students in kindergarten, and then we have 6 first graders in our AIM program. We have about 80 staff members, but if you include after-school custodians, kitchen staff, we have about 130 people in the building, just in terms of adults. We have 40 paraprofessionals. I think we have the most paraprofessionals in the district, and they contribute to a really positive learning experience for our students. And then we are a a new school every year. And I think sometimes people forget that. We have about 175 to 200 new students and families each year, and that's a really big deal. And so there's lots of support needed on that end, especially if you're new to school, if it's your child's first experience in school, but we're a new school every year, and then we have our race and ethnicity data, which changes year to year as our population changes. This photo is our gingerbread week, which I didn't know what was to come because it was my first gingerbread week ever, but it's really a shared learning experience and shared reading experience across our pre-K and K. We adapt the curriculum for each classroom and student, of course, and there's a lot of family involvement where they get to come and decorate the gingerbreads, and it's not just like the people that live at home with you. Cousins came, siblings came, multiple family members, and I got to read to kindergarten, grade 1, and all of the families as well, so it was fun. So our first goal we're going to talk about is academic excellence. So by the end of the school year, through implementation of targeted instruction and intervention, at least 60% of our students will meet grade level expectations on the DIBELS, and 85% of our students will meet grade level expectations on the PELI, both of which will measure foundational literacy skills, including alphabet knowledge and phonemic awareness. And then, so phonemic awareness is really to identify or isolate individual sounds. And so the first sound in car is ka, si, right, car, or blending sounds together, so like ka, ta, cut. And so I decided to engage in the experience of taking the assessments to really understand what our students were experiencing. So I took the DIBELS a couple weeks ago, and it was administered to me by one of our parents, who's also a reading teacher at the East. And then I took the EASY, which we're not going to go over today, and then I'm going to take the PELI later this week. So it was a fascinating learning experience for me to kind of see what our students are going through when they go through these assessments, and me as a language learner understanding what that looks like for our students on that level as well. And then the background photo is one of our kindergarten students in AIM working on solving a math equation using some manipulatives. That's from a few months ago. Next slide. So when you look at our data, the first two sections are our composite scores from the beginning of the year and the middle of the year for the DIBELS. And so 60% of our students were on grade level at the beginning of the year, and 53% of our students were on grade level by the middle of the year. And then for letter naming fluency, we went up from 60 to 62%, which was great to see. Just a note on the DIBELS that I really want to highlight is that it increases with difficulty as you progress through the assessments, right? So you take the beginning of the year, and then the middle of the year increases with difficulty. So it doesn't mean that there's a loss of skills when you see that 60 to 53%. It's just that some skills students haven't mastered yet. They're learning them, just might not have mastered them yet. And then for our PELI data, super proud of what we're seeing in our students in pre-K. 75% of them are on grade level for alphabet knowledge, and then the composite score overall, 83% are on grade level. And I know it says all students, like all kindergarten, all pre-K. Something that I really want to highlight is that it's for all students that can access the assessments, and so many of our students are total communicators, and so it's really important that we're also following, their IEPs, measuring their goals, ensuring that they're meeting their goals, while also teaching them the early literacy skills. So for some students, they may not be accessing the DIBELS or PELI, but they're still getting the same early literacy skills, or instruction, I should say. Next slide. I'm not going to read through all of the jargon on the slide, but I want to talk about what's the work that we're doing and then the opportunities that we're seeing in terms of academic excellence. In our common planning time, in our grade level meetings, we are reviewing the assessment scores. We are ensuring that we're creating targeted small groups for students, that interventions are in place for students, and that we are progress monitoring, usually through our special education teacher or our ESL teacher. Something that was really important for us this year was that if you are an adult in the classroom, you are trained in what intervention students need, and you know exactly exactly what they need, and that includes our paraprofessionals as well. And so we gave them the special ed teacher and the ESL teacher provided training to our paraprofessionals to ensure that in the absence of a teacher, or if they're running a small group, they know how to run those targeted interventions as well. Some opportunities that we're seeing with our data is how can we use our pre-K data to really inform class placement for next year so that our classrooms are balanced, and then not just for the Capuano, but for the receiving schools as well. So at our PD this week, we'll be working on what information we're going to give to receiving schools so that they're ready to receive our students. And then in addition to that, we have some phenomenal substitutes that come to the building a couple times a week or are really committed to the Capuano and have gotten to know our students, their families, but also kind of what they need really well. And so we're very intentional about how we place substitutes in classrooms, some of which are like learning how to provide intervention to students. And so I can walk in a classroom with a substitute and it feels seamless, which has been really great to see. So there's no loss of learning if an educator is absent. Next slide. All right, so for equity and access, by the end of the school year, through implementation of targeted strategies and Tier 2 instructional supports, at least 50% of our identified language learners will be on grade level in alphabet knowledge on the Pelley assessment, and at least 35% on grade level on letter naming fluency on the DIBELS. I know many principals have come to school committee and said that, we asked our staff, raise your hand if you are a teacher of a language learner. Everyone raises their hand, right? And we know the importance of that, and so at our first PD in October, whole school PD, it was really important that our English as a second language teacher led that PD, and it was really about making sure our multilingual learners are not just succeeding, but they're thriving in the classroom setting, and then taught us the stages of second language learning, what that looks like, and then various supports and interventions that can happen in the classroom setting. And then the background photo is Mata Mendoza. She kicked off Everyone is Welcome Here week, which we have across the district. And it was at what we call Club Capuano, 150 Glen Street. It's during the day, it's a good time. And it was a really great whole school event where we sang songs about how we want to be the change that we want to see in the world. And then the backdrop for that was made by our squirrel class, and so they were really excited to make the backdrop for the concert. And for our students, many of them, their very first concert ever, so it's a good experience. Next slide. So at the beginning of the year, our students that are multilingual learners, about 21% were on grade level, and then for the middle of the year, about 11% on grade level with the DIBELS. And again, they're still mastering many skills, and a lot of the recommendations from the DIBELS, the Pelley, the EASY, all the assessments that our students are taking, one of them is just exposure to school, right? You're just learning. And when I was administrating an assessment to a student, there was an animal in it, and I was like, how would you know this animal at like this age? But it's connected to one of our classrooms. So they're like, I know exactly what that is. But if they hadn't seen it in the school building or been exposed to it, they just may not have gotten it in the moment. So that's something that's really important to recognize. Even today when I was taking the Pelley, I was doing the building blocks, and I'm like, how would someone know that like this is what a tower looks like unless you've been exposed to a tower? And it's tall, it doesn't go across, just in case anybody knows, anybody's wondering. So again, exposure is really important for our multilingual learners, and that's what we're trying to do every day at the Capuano. And then next slide. And then this is our Pelley data, and so for alphabet knowledge, we're about 5% away from our goal of students, 35% of our students being on grade level for alphabet knowledge, and then our composite middle of the year is at 20% right now. I do want to shout out pre-K across the district. There's been a lot of intentionality behind professional development this year, cross-collaboration. Our staff are really working together. They spend a lot of time at the Capuano in their PD sessions, and the scores for the entire district really speak for themselves. I don't have that here, but there has been great growth and success amongst our pre-K students, especially in alphabet knowledge, so super proud of them. Next slide. And so what is the work that we're doing, and where are the opportunities? So as mentioned, we had the PD to kick off the school year. Our instructional leadership team started peer walkthroughs, something that was new to the building this year, and it takes time to get comfortable to have somebody in your classroom, and it takes time to be comfortable watching somebody else in their classroom. And so that kicked off in December, but then once staff got into the routine of it, it went really well for our instructional leadership team. In addition to that, as always, we're progress monitoring with our students and reviewing that data, whether it's in grade level or for students referred to our child study team or in their common planning time meetings. Where are the opportunities? Starting our peer walkthroughs earlier in the school year. We started in December this year, so it'd be great to start in September, October next school year, and then including all of the staff in that, not just our instructional leadership team, so there can be some comfortability around getting some peer support, but also observing what your peers are doing in the classroom. And then we want to spend some time having intentional professional development around student discourse. We've been thinking and looking a lot at who's doing the majority of talking and thinking in the classroom, and we want to make sure it's not the teachers doing that, but the students. Next slide. All right, so wellness and joy. By June 2026, at least 80% of students will demonstrate proficiency or exceed expectations in the domains of self-management and 70% in the domain of conflict management, as measured by our school-wide SEL2 tool, which is aligned with DESE SEL standards. Really excited about the data we're about to show you, and then the background of this photo is probably one of my favorite photos from the school year. It's 2 students in our pre-K AIM classroom and a volunteer during their car wash, which happens early on in the school year. It's aligned with our pre-K C curriculum, the transportation unit. So some of our classrooms had a car wash, some classrooms built airports, some classrooms walked to the T station, but our students really got to learn about like how we move through the city. So that was an exciting time. You had to use your CAPI dollars to get a car wash. Our AP went through the tunnel, got a little, it was fun. Next slide. So this is a moment to really pause and celebrate when we look at this data for our social emotional learning. We're almost at 80% in the domain of self-management, and we're over our 70% goal in the domain of conflict management. And so what does that mean for our students? They're learning social skills, they're learning how to respond to conflict, they're learning how to wait, which is really important. They're learning how to say no or yes. They're learning how to say, I'm using this now, can you wait 2 minutes and I can share with you. A lot of our students are only children, so that's challenging for sure. But they're also learning how to regulate. They're learning how to recognize when they are dysregulated and to ask for what they need or to seek that in the classroom already. They're able to use our sensory spaces, fidgets, break spaces, breathing techniques, and sometimes they just need a hug. And so they ask for that and they get it. Next slide. So where's the work and where's the opportunity? Social emotional learning is every day, all day long, and I think in every school building, and especially in the pre-K, K, and grade 1 space. Our students are being exposed to a classroom, to a community, to new friends, to learning how to work together. We, of course, also have the second step curriculum, which is being used across the district. And then we have our school-wide PBIS, which has really been led by our assistant principal, Ms. Chevalier, where we are working on being kind and being safe. And our goal was 350 paws, and we exceeded our goal by the end of April break, before April break to 571. So the PBIS team is gonna meet in a couple weeks to figure out what the whole school prize will be. So we'll see what's coming. But our Be Kind and Be Safe really aligns with the pre-K to 8s as well, right? Our Winter Hill Wildcats roar and our Haley Hawks soar, but a lot of their school-wide SEL goals are around being kind and safe, and so it introduces students to this is something that we are doing as a community and who we are, but we're also trying to really teach them it's not just about doing it so you can get your paw sticker, right? But it's about doing it because it's the right thing to do and having integrity. And then where are there opportunities in this? The SEL2 was made in 2017 by Capuano staff. While it's thorough and robust, it's been almost 10 years, so it's time to kind of take a look at, is this the right tool for us to be using? And is there a tool that we can use and all of our students can access it, and we can compare data with schools across the district, pre-K and K. And so one of our special education teachers and one of our SLPs, probably the best people to be on the team, are looking at different assessments that we might be able to use, one of them being the BIMAS, and seeing if that is the right assessment for our students. We're hoping to pilot it and then go from there. And then we are also hoping to create a working group to really look at the intentionality behind our sensory spaces. Who is using them? How often? What are we doing when we're there? Do we need all the items that are in the sensory space? And then how can we teach staff to use it well for students so that they're getting what they need, can be regulated, and walk back into classrooms? Next slide. And then our final goal is around family and community engagement. And so by the end of the school year, through surveys, conversations with families, we'll understand more about how families want to be communicated with, engaged at school events, and involved in their child's learning. This one's a little challenging because our families change over every year. And so one year, families may say, we're super into second step, let's talk about that every day. And the next year, I'm sure this upcoming year, we're going to talk a lot about wit and wisdom because it's coming to kindergarten, our ELA curriculum, right? So this was a little bit challenging. So we had to sit and think about like how we are going to work towards this goal. And then the photo is just an aerial view of our gym during our open house back to school night. We invited community members to come in and share about different services within the community so families were aware. Next slide. So we decided at the beginning of the year to start really taking data on like our families coming to the events. Let's just see who's coming. And 89% of our families have attended at least one of the 3 events, which is great to see. Back to school night and 2 of our conferences. When you look at the back to school night and open house, whatever you want to call it, data, we're at 43%, but this was about 1 month after orientation, and all of our families are invited to orientation. And so if you missed orientation, you definitely came to back to school night, but if you attended orientation, you might have said, I've already seen the classroom, I heard all these things from the teachers, I'm okay with skipping back to school night. So while it's at 43%, a lot of families attended orientation and decided to just opt out of like another preview of the classroom. Next slide. So what is the work and where are the opportunities? We, in terms of communication, we're of course using SMORE. We average about 250 views per week. I get a lot more views when I email like individual classrooms or grades. I'm like finding the sweet spot. But 250 kids, 250 views, it's working out. We're of course tracking the attendance, as you can see. And then something else we're noticing is that if families have had an IEP meeting within the last month of this school event, they probably won't come to the whole school event because they've already gotten that individual conversation about their child. And about 32% of our school population are students receiving special ed services. And then where are the opportunities? In addition to tracking families attending events, we also want to check to see which families are missing 2 events in a row, and then how can we work with our family liaison to reach out to them via phone call or in person to have a discussion about, want to make sure you got the information, why didn't you come to the event, what do you need from us, how can we support you so we can get you in the building. As much as we're trying to build like students' early literacy and foundational skills, we're also trying to build families in terms of come to the building all the time, pre-K to 8 into high school as well. And so we really want that to start that in the early years. Another opportunity is providing more opportunities for family to have curriculum check-ins. We had a really wonderful kindergarten event, and so one of the missed opportunities, we had a little lag time in the building, and I was like, this would be a great time to talk about what students are learning in the classroom before they came back down. And so looking at opportunities of like families are already in the building, when can we stop and check in about what their child is learning in the classroom. Also using back to school night or open houses as kind of like our first like governing board school improvement meeting so that families really understand what it means to be on the PTA or those forums, because they're sometimes only with us for a year, so they're so focused on what's happening in the classroom, but we want them to be a part of the school community as well. And then a dream is to have a family-run parent room at the Capuano. I think we have the perfect space for it. The SFLC is already doing some play groups there. Families are familiar with the building, and so what can that look like and how can we make the dream a reality? And then my final 2 slides, I'll go to the next slide. And we'll go one photo at a time, Amara. So I just want to name some highlights. We have 3 staff members retiring this year: Jerry Fullerton, Andrea Pease, and Jackie Lawrence. And this is a photo of Jerry Fullerton in her pre-K classroom, and the students wrote stories about what they like about her and drew pictures, and they got to read them to her on one of her last days. Next photo. This is really the community coming together. This is our holiday store, which I was not familiar with, but such an exciting week where families are able to bring in gently or like new items that they don't need in their home anymore, toys, whatever it may be, and then the following week, families get to come and shop. And it is the most exciting time in the building, and I know it's the year of the neighbor, and it's really like the neighborhood coming together to support all families. Next slide. This is our early childhood intervention program community event, which happens in October-ish, and this is one of our USPS postmasters reading a story to the students, and again, exposure is really important, so one of the first questions a student asked was, "What's mail?" And I was like, you're right, great question. Have we showed you what a stamped letter looks like? And they know like an Amazon package, and they know a box is coming, but like what's mail? And so again, at this level, exposure is really important. Next photo. This is the same event. We also had a doula come in, and we didn't talk about like what it takes to have a baby, but we did talk about how you can support your family at home, especially if you have siblings coming, and what it means to help out when like they're getting in the car seat or waiting, and so that's really important for our students as well. Next photo. This is our picture of our Lunar New Year celebration. It was a school-wide event, but really focused on continuous learning of different cultures, and we all got to learn something about the Lunar New Year and then celebrate at the end of the week with our families and our students. Next photo. This was really exciting. We decorated our doors for Black History Month. We had Aretha Franklin, we had sports players, but we also had Dr. Mae Jemison, who was the first Black astronaut in space, and then of course Artemis came a few months later, and so I'm totally convinced that one of our students is going to be an astronaut. We spent an ample amount of time talking about space and rocket ships. They built space centers in their classroom and put cord phones in their room and keyboards, and it was a great time. Next photo. This is our fun run, which we recently had, and it was a really great showcase for our students to show off the gross motor skills that they're learning in PE with Mr. Jimmy, and to just be able to fail, try again, get up, but have a really good time, but also feel confident in their mobility. Next photo. And then this was just a really nice community moment. One of our students was waiting by the office, and a FedEx employee dropped a package, and he went and helped him pick it up, and he was like, next week I turn 5. When I'm 5, I'm gonna be strong like you, and I can lift the boxes. And then like the FedEx employee stopped and had a really sweet, encouraging conversation with him about staying in school, and you can be whatever you wanna be. And again, like we really are a school that values community. And then I think final photo, yeah, that's the people. So while I am here and presenting on our school improvement plan, the people that are really important are our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our administrators, our specialists, our service providers, our after-school staff, our secretary, our coaches, our custodians, our early ed team. They all work to ensure that our students are getting those foundational literacy skills, that our family's first experience in SPS is a really positive one, and that all students have what they need to be able to learn and grow. And then of course I want to shout out our AIM staff. There's about 17 of them transitioning to the Winter Hill or our Denziano. They are the bedrock of our community, so we'll miss them deeply, but excited about the work we're doing right now and we'll continue to do. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Principal Barras. Having seen your trajectory, it's really a treat to be able to say Principal Barras.
What a time.
More times. Thank you to my colleagues. Are there questions, comments? All right, we are going Green, Selman, Bitone, Pitone, Lippens.
First of all, I obviously echo the congratulations. Couldn't be happier. I'm asking actually about the assessments, because I think you are, and your school is in a unique position with the unique challenges that I think the district as a whole, and frankly, the state as a whole, can learn from. You mentioned two things that I wanted to really pick your brain about. The first one, as you mentioned, you're a whole new school every year, which means the traditional, simple way most people talk about measuring school improvement just won't work for you. Like, you can't look at scores year to year because you're not comparing apples to apples. So, have you thought about how, given that limitation, you can really know that your practice of education is improving, recognizing that even in the case of improved practice, results may vary wildly from year to year as the population you're working with changes. And the second part of that is for those later grades where they do use test scores and those kind of things in that more evaluatory, accountability way, you touched on something in passing, almost jokingly, that is a real issue, which is that American standardized tests, all of them, are normalized against upper middle class, white, primarily male experiences. In a district that is none of those things and is increasingly none of those things, how are we, you touched on this, how are we preparing students for a world and evaluation system that normalizes experiences that aren't theirs?
Great questions. So we've been thinking really deeply about how we are following our students from pre-K to 8 years old. And so I've been meeting with our data team, Sam and Arundhati, to discuss that. There's already some data that they're looking at that, like, it's their data to share, so I don't have it. But we're noticing for students that are leaving us and going into the pre-K to 8s, their scores are pretty similar when you compare them to their peers, and stay essentially the same with growth into like 8 years old. I think it's something that we can look at a little bit more deeply, but definitely there's opportunity there. And then how do we prepare students for the world is what you're asking me? That's a big question. I think the biggest thing for us right now is exposure, right? To the community, to the world, to new things, and then meeting students exactly where they are. There's a student that only responds to me in Portuguese, and I understand enough to know that she understands the text and her answer, like, she's comprehending it, and then, acknowledging that, like, your language is beautiful and welcome here, and how do we expose you to what else is going on in the world? And so exposure is really important, but that takes time. For sure, I don't have a clear trajectory of, like, if we do these 3 things, it's going to be okay for our students, because many of which are, historically marginalized, and so that's a community effort.
First of all, I'm deeply disappointed to hear you haven't figured out American education already. Come on now. But I think through you to the district, I'm really excited to hear about the longitudinal data. If we weren't doing it, I was going to suggest it. And I'm really glad to hear that we're seeing that the gains we're seeing at Capilano aren't being lost, because I remember, if I remember correctly, when Superintendent Carmona came on board, that was the challenge we were facing, was that we had done really good work at narrowing gaps at entrance, and then they were expanding again once they got here, which was deeply concerning. So I would really love it, and I think it's a place where we might want to consider bringing in the resources of the Greater Boston Collegiate Research Community. If we could really think about how you do deep dives and longitudinal data on our students, so we can really get meaningful, holistic, qualitative data about long-term student progress in a way that our current assessment tools are, by design, not designed to do.
Thank you. Dr. Stellman.
This was fantastic. I will try to keep this short because it's just kind of a funny comment. The Wellness and Joy presentation is so incredibly important, and it made me think of a nice revenue opportunity for the city, Mayor. Because if we had a Capuano evening school for adults where we could learn how to self-manage and do conflict resolution, can you imagine what our community, what our city would look like? So I know it's a little silly to bring this up, and it's probably not going to happen, although revenue, right? But what I'm saying, and this dovetails a little bit with what Member Green said, which is that the qualitative piece of learning is just incredible, the way that you and your staff are doing this, and it is inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Biton?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, those of you who know us will not be surprised that I had a similar joke in queue as Dr. Stellman. But I will just build upon her remarks to say that your focus on self-regulation, I mean, we're building the next generation of people here, and your focus is spot on. You're teaching them how to be in the world and how to be good people, and how to be in partnership together in a classroom, in a community. I love it. You're also teaching parents and caregivers, right, how to be successful in this district and welcoming them in, and your emphasis on that I thought was so important. And so just thank you for that emphasis. I've known you since your days at the West. You mentioned to me when we were speaking before the meeting today, you named my daughter by name. And I think that really speaks to your dedication to our students, that you hold them with you. And so I'm so excited for your official tenure to continue. So wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
What I'd like to learn a little more about, and either to you, Ms. Barrows, or to the administration, is about what do you envision for the Capuano next year with the AIM program sort of branching off, and how does that look at Capuano next year?
Well, one, we're going to miss them deeply. And so that we really want to close out in a way that makes everyone feel seen, heard, and valued in the space, and that they also kind of leave a piece of them behind. And so we're working on an art project to do that. More to come. And then what does it look like next year? There have been a lot of ideas floating around. We were trying to be gentle in that conversation and approach because people are still leaving the building. And so that's hard of like people are talking about your space and what's going to happen when you're gone, but you're still here right now. And so a family room is one of those opportunities. We've been thinking about what would it look like to have a model classroom. A lot of, not a lot, but the pre-K teachers across the district have been going through and viewing each other's classroom and kind of naming what they see and what they can do in their rooms and opportunities for adjustment and improvement. And so what would it look like to have a model classroom? After school always needs more space. What does it look like to build a really robust sensory space? I mean, there's so many ideas that are just like floating around right now, but we want to make sure it's a community conversation with some intentionality behind it. And yeah, so not entirely sure, but there are ideas to come, but our staff and students are in the building through the extended school year program, so that's about August 7th, 2026. And so I don't want to just slap something in the building so quickly because school's going to start, but being intentional in the next year about what's next. Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to go Patone, then Lippens, and then over to Mayor Wilson.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for being here. I just had a couple comments and then one question. First, I wanted to the building photo narrative that you shared was really lovely, and it was a really short and sweet way to represent your culture as a school. And I just wanted to compliment you on that. And I love this concept of exposing students to new things and things, and this is not my question, but I'm just going to leave you with this. How do you systematize that? It's not in the mission, it's not in the vision, but I can see it really speaks to you personally, and I think it really speaks to our students because we have such a diverse population. So you don't have to answer to that one, but I would leave that with you because it's really special, and I think it's a component of project-based learning. It's a component of many things that make school meaningful to students. So I just wanted to compliment you on that and think about ways to systematize that. I also wanted to acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you guys are kind of taking a pause on your own internal SEL tool, because it can be really easy to continue with what you already have. People are comfortable with it, but I'm never negative about homegrown things, but I also know the power of something that's more systemic, that you can compare even in ideal worlds, other districts, other communities, even if it's just our schools within Somerville. So I'm just going to compliment that as well. And my question, and it may be for you and it may be for the superintendent's office, do you use conditions for learning at all in pre-K? And it wasn't as part of your presentation. We often have schools that use that as a parameter to assess if things are improving or not. And I'm just curious, A, do you use it? And B, why did you choose not to include that as part of your process?
Yes, I can kind of answer the how do we systematize it. When we look at our pre-K C curriculum, I think there is a focus on project-based learning. Folks are like, what do the kids come to school? They like play, but when you really watch the play, there's intentionality behind it. And so I want to name that, but then also within the curriculum, there are some big themes where students are being exposed to Somerville itself, where it's like the community, the transportation, lights, color, shadow, reflection, trees. So that's kind of where that comes in, of course. And then for the conditions for learning survey, as a staff, we did look at it together, and we discussed the family responses and the staff responses. The family responses, of course, our families change year to year, so we reviewed it and thought about like what adjustments we could make. And then for the staff responses, we talked a lot about, and this is why I kind of keep saying community and collaboration, of decisions being made in community and collaboration, right? People support what they help create. And so that's really important to us as a staff. Our students don't take it. So there's no student data to present on. So I really would have been presenting on staff data, and that didn't just feel appropriate in this space because we're changing families year to year. Yeah.
Thank you. Member Lippens.
Thank you. Way back when my daughter attended the Capuano, it was her first experience, my first experience, and my husband actually, I told him to sign me up for the PTA, and he signed me up for the School Improvement Council because he thought they were the same thing. But my point is, I was on the School Improvement Council, and I knew then, as I know now, how really special and unique the Capuano is as an early childhood learning. As you know, and I'm sure all your colleagues and teachers know, 85% of brain development happens before the age of 5. So early childhood education and investing in early childhood education, I'm going to say that really loud, is really worthwhile, especially when you have students who are coming into school for the first time. I loved how you recognized, and I just want to additionally raise up the importance of exposure to community, the world, just what is being in what does it being a student look like? What does it mean to be in a classroom? What does it mean to be a friend and a community member? These are things that no standardized test can really measure. So I just want to raise that up just from to my colleagues and through you, Chair, and through to you, Mr. Mayor, like just the importance of putting our money where, it's impactful. So my question is, I heard you talk about creating a resource bank for families, and I love that idea, especially with like new curriculums and stuff. I am wondering about how you can sustain it in terms of like, getting new parents every year. So I just have questions about that, like, and how you might leverage like maybe community partners so that it's, you can continue to do the work. Because I feel like it's such a great idea and you're doing so much already. So I just wonder, how you can leverage that. But awesome, thank you so much.
So at the end of our newsletter, there's like a little resource bank there for families, and I'm really adding things to it as families are asking questions. I also think our partnership with the SFLC is really important. They know our families before I know our families or before they come enroll in the school, especially through our play groups. And so I went to an evening event and I wasn't sure what to expect, but there were about like 50 families there, many of which will eventually become Capuano Cub families. So I think in terms of like connecting and collaborating with the community, staying really connected to our SFLC, continuing to have play groups, occur at the Capuano is really important, and have events there for families that aren't Cubs yet, to really introduce them to SPS, to our resources. We also invite community members into our open house or back to school night. That was that photo in the gym where families can be connected to different services within the city pretty easily. And then our family liaison does an extraordinary job at introducing herself to families, but making sure everyone has what they need, and then sharing resources as well.
Great, I love that. I love that you're opening it up to like community members and like future Cubs. I love that idea, because then at least you have them for like more. And I'm just thinking about that, like leveraging that idea and concept so you can get more out of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Wilson, and then we'll go to Member Green.
Thanks, Chair. Our colleague from Ward 7 basically asked the question I was going to ask, so instead I just have a comment, and that comment is that a couple weeks ago, along with the superintendent, I attended your spring concert, and I have to say that was just an amazing experience. Seeing the way that you all, we're talking here a lot about inclusion, right? The way you all pulled that off was just something to behold. It was just, we're talking about joy here. The joy in that cafeteria was just next level. So I want to commend you for just, it's clear that you've really fostered a really wonderful atmosphere in that school. And it was just amazing to witness what we saw that day. So thank you.
Thank you. And our teachers are really learning with and from each other. Between gen ed and special ed, there is just a really strong mix of like, I can pop into the teacher next door and support them, or they can support me, especially in adapting curriculum. And then someone can pop over, an AIM teacher can pop over to a gen ed classroom and say, oh, this is where your students are right now. Okay, what do I need to do to get my students to that academic level? And then it really is a team effort. Ms. Puglisi, the music teacher, is phenomenal, and we're so happy to have her. And as you saw, it takes every adult on the stage supporting and ensuring our students have exactly what they need so that they can engage in the performance, but also participate. And so you saw me in the back, I was crying a little bit. I was watching a parent, and I just want to name this. There was a student who was on the mic and introduced, I think, like the next segment of the show. And I was talking to the mom after, and she said to me, she was like, you don't understand, he wasn't talking last year. And then here he is on the mic. And so that like inclusion is probably the most important thing, right, for us, and ensuring that students have what they need, meeting them where they are, and then getting them to the next stage of their development. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to call on myself quickly, and then to Member Green. I'm curious, Principal Barros, because I know that you are very good at sort of keeping on top of research and best practice, as you have indicated through your amazing comprehensive presentation. Mentioning, not every district's a K-8 district. but being the only school with like the highest amount of turnover that you've spoken to, do you know if like of research-based best practices for building community in high turnover schools? And if so, like, you know, have you touched on it, or are you just going to be the pioneer who's like showing us the way, and then, you know, you'll be teaching it to everyone?
Definitely not the pioneer. I will name one person that I look to a lot, and I took this class in grad school, is Dr. Karen Mapp in Family Partnerships. She's done a lot of great work. One of her books is called Beyond the Bake Sale. She's the reason why we think it's really important to have a family room at the school. Took us on tours when we were in grad school of what a community school really looks like. And so if we can build to that, that would be amazing. But I turn to her work a lot. I can name that. But definitely not the pioneer. Many other people are doing it and doing it really well.
Thank you. Member Green.
So I have a very, very important question. Where can we buy one of those sweatshirts?
I closed the order form for the year. I will talk to the company, the vendors, Graffiti Graphics, to see if we could do it again one more time. But the pink is special order, and you have to be the principal of the Capuano, so.
I just wanted to hear that, but what colors can I mean more like I get?
There's gray, there's royal blue, there's black.
Thank you. Member Vito?
Thank you, Chair, through you. And real quick, one of the things I love the most about this job is reading every single one of the newsletters from the schools. I think we might have fallen off the school committee might have fallen off the Capuano's list. So if we can get back on that list, I would improve my weekly experience. Thank you.
I'll check that. I thought I had it.
Blackboard? I use Blackboard? I'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Thank you. All right. Superintendent?
Yes, I think the magic and the sauce that Principal Barros is always concocting is the result of an intention. And I think that, just so you know, this is, that has been carried from every site that Principal Barros has been to. And so I think that you hear that this is not just, coming into something and then becoming something. I think that that's who you are. But I think that also you're becoming a new person by interacting with a new space. And I know that Assistant Principal Krishna Chevalier is also a partner in crime in this process. And so congratulations to both of you as well as to the community. But is really is a love, a craft that when you see it, when you see what happens, you realize that you are in front of something that is really transformational. So thank you for the work, and thank you for continuing to chart the path of growth for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now our next presentation comes from the Brown School, and we have Principal Christopher Ames. Christopher is a teacher at heart. He's a coach by intention and also a principal by design. We're really excited to have him here. I know this year and last year in the conversations that we have had about growth and focus, the community has focused entirely on addressing our underserved students, and that has paid off. They have seen significant growth, and I'm excited to hear today what you will be continuing to do with your community to sustain that growth for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Principal Barros, that was amazing. Way to go, congratulations. I thought perhaps I had like a stroke of luck by following the newest principal, but I was very wrong. That was incredible. And I hope everyone has their water bottle because it's going to get pretty dry in here, probably, pretty quickly with me speaking. So, thank you for this opportunity to present on the progress that we, the Benjamin G. Brown School, are making on our school improvement plan. Before getting into goals and data and next steps, I wanted to make sure to underscore my appreciation to this school committee and to our central leadership for creating the foundational conditions for our staff and our students to thrive. I have the honor, I should put my reading glasses on. That's why everything's blurry. I always do this. I have the honor of standing before you as the school leader, but it has been students and educators, of course, making the remarkable progress reflected in tonight's presentation. And I don't plan on reading the presentation this evening, but I am thanking people up front, and I want to make sure I don't miss anyone. So thank you to our incredible students who are everything to us and inspire us every day. Boundless thanks to the dedicated and talented staff at the Benjamin G. Brown School who work tirelessly for young people. I have marveled at educators' ability to avoid the distractions around the future of our school and instead maintain unwavering focus on supporting one another, developing their own practice in the service of individual students, and ensuring that all of the young people for whom we work are making growth. I also want to thank our fantastic PTA, the teachers and family members on our school site council, and our ILT, who I will name: Kate Malillo, Eve Ribnick, Stephanie Vasilian, Alex Chase, Andrew Stadel, and Mark Cervello. These groups, and the ILT in particular, have played an integral role in developing, implementing, and monitoring our SIP. Slide. I also can't see the screen if my glasses are on, so you're going to see, if it's distracting. So I am actually going to talk about our goals in the opposite order. So I'm starting with the fourth, with the family and community engagement, and working my way back. So our community and family engagement goal aims to provide more opportunities and tools for families to support the learning that's happening at school, at home. In some ways, this was the most difficult of all the goals to set because both qualitative data and the results from the Conditions for Learning survey indicated that our families were quite happy with the opportunities that they have to engage with our school. So we ended up choosing this goal because it supports two of the other goals in the plan, because it was an area of growth that the staff emphatically asked for and asked about. And what's interesting, partly about this goal, is that success is not attached to specific numeric benchmarks like all of our other goals. The objectives themselves and meeting these objectives, putting this plan in place, will be the measure of success. Slide. That said, we do have the Conditions for Learning survey results from 2 years ago and this past year, and you can see that there is some improvement. So families are feeling the impact of our efforts. There was a 7 percentage point increase in the question around school, giving clear information about the child's academic progress at home, and also 11 percentage point elevation in the school gives me clear information about what my child is expected to learn each year. This is also important to put in context because last year, of course, was our design and implementation year. So this survey was taken in March or April of last year, and our plan had really only been in effect for a few months at that point. The next step for this goal is to survey families not quite yet, is to survey families to see which of the objectives, whether it's the family workshops, whether it's sending specific tools home at strategic points in the year, like which of these are making the biggest impact for families, so we can make sure that we're doing that well and we continue to do it. Slide. So goal 3 is our wellness and joy goal. And so you've probably noticed here, I pulled apart some of the metrics of the benchmarks and from the goal itself, so it would be a little bit easier to refer to. If you look at our initial or our full SIP, you will see each goal is one very, very long sentence that includes all of these benchmarks. But simply put, our wellness and joy goal was to decrease lateness and chronic absenteeism. You can see from the benchmarks there that so far our progress on this goal has been mixed. So our chronic absenteeism rate is very, very low. Currently, it's at about 3%. There are some other students who are trending chronically absent, and if they are chronically absent for the year, it could get up to about 6%, but that's still a very low number. On the other hand, we haven't made a dent in our effort to decrease the number of tardies at our school. Right now, it's up around 317 per month, which seems very excessive, and it's difficult because students are missing those first moments of the school day where in every classroom in our school, there's a morning meeting or a circle where students are starting their day together. And as we all know, education is a social act, and so for certain classmates not to be there is problematic. Many of our families have had a hard time understanding why this is so important. And one of the things that I'm thinking before I talk about next steps, may I have the next slide, please? So here's the data I was referring to. A few things that you'll notice is that 4 out of 6 of the students who are chronically absent are actually in kindergarten. So some schools wouldn't count those students. The state looks at that differently. We don't look at it differently or treat it differently at our school. You'll also notice that 8 out of 14 of the students who are chronically absent or trending chronically absent took extended trips for a week or more this year. And so obviously these extended trips make it very difficult to get the attendance that we're looking for. And if you took those extended trips out, only 3% of our students would be trending even chronically absent. Something that's worth mentioning is that this year was particularly difficult. Around the holiday break, many families had a hard time getting back because of weather or because of regional conflict from whatever their trips were. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we are averaging 317 tardies per month. With a student body that's only 231 students, that's pretty high. It feels high. So the next steps for this one is we are going to next year have a monthly attendance bulletin that will come out in my second weekly update each month. I do one each week. Oh, and about the weekly updates, you might want to get in on the staff weekly update. It might be more informative than the one for families, actually. I can put you on the list if you'd like. So we're going to have an attendance bulletin that will go out, and I should mention that Dean Ribnick, who also was new last year, has been crucial in regularly looking over the attendance data, alerting me and our student support team whenever there are students or families who need assistance or support with attendance. And so she will generate these attendance bulletins. I'm even thinking about parsing it out by grade level. I would never do it by class, but I'm even thinking about having how each grade is coming in with attendance and tardies to see if that makes any difference for families. The other next step for us is to work more with the PTA, and we've discussed this quite a bit, to start surveying families to see what additional steps the PTA or the school could take to support them in getting their student to school on time. Slide. Okay, so I invite you to ponder these graphs for a moment as I do a little story time and try to set the scene for goals 2 and 1. So first of all, when I arrived at the Brown School, it was almost 2 years ago now, I started sort of in my comfort zone with an extensive dive into years of learning data and attendance data. And it was very clear to me that although the overall proficiency levels at the Brown are impressive, that there were many students and subgroups of students that were making little to no progress. In fact, some of those subgroups were moving in the wrong direction. And then in my one-on-one meetings with staff, as well as in conversations with the whole staff and PD, more and more people started to tell me that they felt really comfortable with their Tier 1 instruction, even with the implementation of new curriculum, but they felt very ill-equipped to serve the students with the most significant learning gaps. And as a new leader, this was actually a stroke of luck for me. The fact that staff members were citing the same thing that I was seeing reflected in the data was a clear opportunity. So, the other thing I heard from educators quite often was that we need more people. See, most of our other schools have a full-time reading interventionist, maybe more than one. They have math interventionists, and this is personnel that we don't have at the Brown School. And this might sound bad, I don't mean it to, but we don't actually need them. I understand the district's model for distributing resources like interventionists, and I think that there are other schools that need those resources more. So what what I explained to our staff was that it was going to be on us, every educator in the building, to develop the capacity to deliver Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction. If those terms are unclear to anyone, when we do the Q&A, I can definitely talk about it a little bit more. So you've been looking at the graphs for a minute now, and I haven't even named our equity or our academic goal, and these graphs very much relate to them. So I'm just going to quickly tell you that our equity goal is around supporting students who are economically disadvantaged, specifically in the area of mathematics, and the goal is to both raise the level of proficiency, but also to accelerate the growth for those students. Our academic goal is about raising the proficiency and rate of growth of students in the lowest 25%. There's a sort of vague subgroup that you might know about from DESE called the lowest performing students. And the only way to really figure out who those students are is by looking deeply and closely at the data. But they're the focus of our literacy goal. So it was clear to me that if we were going to achieve goals like this, that we would have to fundamentally change and even invent ways for our staff to analyze student learning data, to plan collaboratively, and to deliver targeted instruction in the classroom. The theory of action behind all of this work for these goals specifically is that if we consistently look at student learning data that is fresh and we adjust the learning interventions and extensions that are in place, then all of our students will make a lot of progress. Well, that's where these graphs come in. So you'll notice that each of these dots, well, you might not notice it, but I will tell you, each of these dots is a whole grade level. And to have a single grade level up in this quadrant, that one's 1 or 4. I think it's 4. So up in that quadrant, that indicates both high performance and high growth. And so then to have all 3 of our iReady testing grades in both disciplines or both content areas in that quadrant is actually something quite special. It shows that on average, our students aren't just highly proficient, they're making a ton of growth. Slide. So our equity goal, as I mentioned, was written in an effort to ensure that students who are economically disadvantaged are making significant progress in mathematics. We chose this because it was actually the previous academic goal in the SIP before this one. And when I looked at the data, I saw something really disheartening. They ended in, on average, students who are economically disadvantaged, at the end of that SIP period, their performance was lower than when it started. And so the ILT and I decided that that had to be something that we picked up and that we continue to work with. Now, there are a lot of connections between goals 1 and 2, and I'll speak a little bit more about this goal because I need to give you more context. So many of the objectives are the same for goals 2 and 1. They're just applied to mathematics and literacy. I'm sure that makes some sense to you, but one of them that is very different is the first one. So there was an objective that educators identified that there was a real need for math screeners, more data on students' proficiency, especially at the beginning of the year. So I used to be an instructional coach for mathematics, so last summer I put that hat back on and I designed screeners for every grade. So at the beginning of the year this year in September, all teachers were able to administer a screener that assessed students' prerequisite skills for the current year's curriculum. So just to clarify, I took all of the priority standards from the previous year and I put them in an assessment so a second grade teacher, say, would be able to know exactly which first grade standards their students had mastered. This enabled teachers and paraprofessionals to start with learning interventions by mid-September. And people said that that made a huge difference, that educators said that in years past, sometimes they didn't feel like they really understood the proficiency of students until late in the fall. So this was a big advance for us. And again, unique to this goal, this wasn't part of the next goal, the academic goal. Slide. So, you actually have 2 kind of distinct data sets here. At the top, we're looking specifically at the data from iReady, from the winter diagnostic for students who are economically disadvantaged. These are exceedingly simple pie graphs that I put together here, but they're telling us something very important and interesting. Students who are economically disadvantaged, 54% of them made a year's progress from the fall to the winter. So that's from the fall assessment to January, they made a year's progress. 100% of students who are economically disadvantaged in our school are on pace this year to make more than a year's progress in mathematics. And 90% of students are on target to meet their ASG for the year. Now, I can talk about ATG and ASG in a moment, but I'm sure you've been seeing so much iReady data. You probably know these acronyms like the back of your hand, but I'll remind you that it's the annual target growth versus, or pardon me, the average target growth versus the average stretch growth. So the ASG is basically a number that a goal that iReady puts together that says, if students are able to meet this goal over 2 years, they will be back on grade level. And that's really the whole point of this. It was to support students who are not on grade level and to get them back where they need to be to fully access our curriculum. So when you look below, it's not just our students who are economically disadvantaged, because you'll probably remember our theory of action wasn't just looking at data and planning out targeted instruction for our least and most proficient students. Sure, that's the main focal point, but we're doing it for every student. So we also looked at the students, the 25% of students with the lowest proficiency in grades 3, 4, and 5. And I put this table together so you could see those results. So if a student has a score of 100 in their annual target growth or average target growth, at the end of the year, that means they made a year's worth of growth, which is wonderful. But what you can see here is that at mid-year, in all 3 grades, students have already made more than a year of growth. That's because every single day, educators are pulling groups of students to make sure that they are either getting the extra challenge that they need or they're getting the support for their learning that they need. And then you'll also notice for the stretch growth that all 3 of those grades are on target to get to 100%. These are not our highest performers. We have many students who are performing and improving at a much faster rate. But these are our least proficient students who we desperately need to get back onto grade level. And I'm sharing data around iReady, partly because our metrics are all built around MCAS, which I kind of regret, honestly, but I don't know if I trust iReady that much more. So it feels difficult to find the exact right measurements or assessments to use the measurements from. But all of these practices are being applied to the students with the lowest proficiency in every grade, in every classroom. And so over years, we are sure we are going to continue to see the impact of this work. Next slide. So this is our academic goal, and I've already told you a whole lot about this goal, so I don't need to go into depth. You will notice that we missed one of our benchmarks. All of the benchmarks that you have here are the year-to-year benchmarks. If you look at our complete SIP, you'll see where we plan to be at the end of next year with these goals. But the one we didn't meet was the one that matters the least to me. That sounds kind of bad, but you probably know from listening to me speak for just a little while, I don't care so much about the scaled scores of things. I care about kids moving. The growth is what's important to me. And so the fact that we didn't get that was okay because we did hit the benchmark for SGP. Now, for the last goal, I talked about one objective that was unique to our equity goal, and here I want to talk about something that is super, super important that I even think that other schools will benefit from thinking about if they're not already thinking about it along these lines. And that's how our PD and our CPT are working together now. And this is partly what I alluded to with the foundational conditions that have been created for success. Like, I really believe that. We've never had these opportunities where we could have so much alignment in our schools. And so the way this work is happening is during our PD sessions, we dedicate more than an hour for a deep dive on standardized learning data. It's there that educators start to map it all out and plan interventions and extensions for particular students. But then in between PD sessions, they're meeting in grade level teams or grade level bands where they can then follow up on the interventions they're using, get feedback from their colleagues, and continue that cycle of inquiry. And I think that's what's making this work so incredibly powerful, or at least part of it. Slide. Okay. So this is the last slide of data, and there's only one more slide after this, I believe, or two more after this. So at the top, you'll see DIBELS data. At the bottom, iReady. This is all related to literacy. The K data for DIBELS is really straightforward. I like that one. It's easy for everyone to look and see. In the fall, many students, our lowest performers, were in red, and now they are in blue. So it does show, for those of you who are familiar with DIBELS data, that change is over in the far right, and you will see that our students in K are making a ton of growth. I chose a different graph for grades 1 and 2 to illustrate their DIBELS growth to show how all students are on a steady trajectory upward. If you're looking at grades 1 and 2 on the right there, the darkest line would be where we are so far this year in our progress. And I already spoke enough about the iReady data that you can probably just put your eyes on that table and see how incredibly pleased and grateful we are for the progress that students are making in literacy. It's really incredible. I mean, on average, more than a year and a half in half a year in grade 3. And every single time when I go into these classrooms during X block, which is our intervention block, teachers have students working on learning interventions. They've pulled students to give them extra intervention. And I know it's working because I see it, and it's also reflected in the data. Next slide, please. Oh, could you actually go back for me on that one? So you may have noticed that I talked about next steps for both Goal 4 and Goal 3, and then I skipped it for Goal 2. Just like the objectives are very similar for Goals 2 and 1, the next steps are very similar too. We're going to continue with all the processes and practices we've put in place around analyzing data, planning collaboratively, but at this point we need to get teachers into one another's rooms more often to see how interventions are actually being delivered. And so next year a big focus will be peer observation, which we have been doing this year, but we will do more next year. And the ILT is going to focus on designing systems for learning walks. Okay, next. Oh, actually one more thing, and this is pretty important. I don't know how productive it is right now, but I have to say, when I look at all the progress and I see all the progress that's being made, I get a little bit worried about the wheel of school improvement and how in a year and a half I'm going to be asked to identify new issues with our school and to start to utilize this time that we have in PD and maybe in CPT to address other issues. And I feel like we cannot let go of this work. Kids are making so much academic progress that we can't let go of it. So one of the things that I'm going to be working on with the School Site Council and the ILT next year a lot is figuring out how can we maintain all of this work and continue to add. I personally am also an advocate of intentionally taking things off teachers' plates. I think we too often add new initiatives and we never ask them, which practices really aren't giving you the bang for the buck? Which should we take away? And I think that's something we'll have to engage in if we're going to continue this work and then add new initiatives. Okay, next slide. I think it's super important to reframe this work because the graphs and the tables are fine, but these are our amazing students at the Brown School, and this is why this is important. These children are so important to us, and to see them thrive and to see them make progress, see how pleased they are with themselves is incredible. And it's not just students. The growth of the educators in our building over the last year and a half has been really, really cool. From the classroom teacher who has now learned how to take all of that student learning data and make a massive plan, to the paraprofessional who's like pulling out a kid or a small group early in the morning to do phonics interventions. This is something that people are drawing a lot of purpose from, and you can feel the purpose among our staff in this work. And for me, it's been one of the highlights of my career. Next slide. So the last slide are just recapping what I said about next steps, since I didn't get those into the slides. You can see them there. There's a lot of work we have to do around next steps. We're still focused on this year, but that's where I'll close things for my presentation, and I welcome questions.
Thank you so much, Principal Ames.
Sure.
To my colleagues. Do we have questions? His presentation was so thorough, we don't have any? I find that hard to believe. Okay. Member Lippens.
Just because I heard you talk about, I am a math coach, so I heard you talk about you're a former math coach, and so I am curious. I know you don't use iReady for 3 through 5, so I was curious about when you talked about like math assessments to assess like priority standards. What were you referring to? Like, so is it just, did you take like things from iReady, or did you use like a program, or was there like a specific?
In creating the screeners?
Yeah.
So I used screeners. I started with some screeners that I had made years ago, and then I tried to improve them. And this year, staff is going, in my one-on-one meetings at the close of the year, I'm going to ask each classroom teacher who used one to give me feedback so we can try to improve them. But I know the learning standards and the scope of the standards very well, and I feel very confident. The screeners that I started with actually used to be used across the district to determine which students were going to get intervention. So there was some validity there that I was starting with.
Yeah, I think that was part of my question, because I know there are screeners that exist. So I was just thinking about how to capitalize on that, because that's really important information, especially if you're not using iReady with our younger. Like, how do you determine at a district level, like, who needs math intervention or who needs for reading as well, but there just seems to be easier data to get. So I was just thinking about that from how to like leverage that, and how it seems like it's going really well. So I just wonder how we could learn more. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, so I think when they're refined a little bit more, like next year I might be ready to sort of offer them up to other schools that might be interested in using them. I think there's a little bit of work to be done still, and again, we're also like calibrating them specifically for our school. I think one other step would be to create a mid-year assessment that's similar, that probably focuses on the priority standards that were covered in the fall, to make sure that we're catching those before we move into new content in the spring. But we're not there yet. Perhaps next year.
Thank you. I'm going to call myself and then Member Bitone. I'm curious, just thinking to our conversation with Principal Barros as well, and sort of we were talking about, you mentioned how much you dig in on data, and I know that you only have your students through 5th grade. Have you looked at longitudinally, like how your students do once they leave the Brown? Is that an opportunity that can be provided? I assume you're interested in that. And I'm sort of, I don't know if it's to you or to the district, but like have you seen that data? And if not, I surmise you would like to, but I don't know if it's been made available to you.
No, you're correct. I want to see that data. Part of it is, since this is only my 2nd year, I think my thinking hasn't really evolved to that point. I certainly think about last year's 5th graders, but those are the only students I've had move on from the Brown School. I think over the next couple years, that curiosity will grow. Currently, I don't have access to the data of those other students who have left the Brown School, but I think that is something that I could get access to, and I think that's really important work to track them and start to do some comparisons to also their receiving schools. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go Member Bitton, Member Pitone, and then Member Green.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I just wanted to offer a compliment about, this may seem very pedestrian, but about your visualization of data. Being on the receiving end of these presentations, it's very, it's so helpful to have data assist in telling a story. And the way you've laid things out and incorporated it into your narrative really helped me understand. And I think that may be part of why I didn't have any questions. Actually, Member Lippens asked the one question I had. So anyway, just compliments to you for the tremendous presentation, and appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. That's frankly not something that comes naturally to me, but my mentor, Ori Harrell, always used to advise me to tell a good story, and yeah, and I usually don't try it, but I did. I often will give you like a 15 by 15 table to look at, but I've learned over time that that hurts people's eyes, and so I'm glad that it worked well for you.
Yeah, this is working. Thank you.
Okay, Member Pitone and then Member Green.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm not sure if my question is for the superintendent's office or for you, but we use iReady for 3 to 5. Are we not using something for K to 2? Why would our principal be put in a position to have to make their own screeners? I'm curious if there's plans to address that, not implying that the screeners might be better than what we could get off the shelf, but, and I know that it's been very targeted for that particular population, and I'm hearing you, but I also know that we need data at all levels, so I'm just curious what the administration has to say. And I also caught the note of, just in general, a comment about iReady from you about not always trusting iReady, and I guess that would bounce back to the question of what does that mean? And again, if this is too much detail, no problem, but I just feel like it kind of triggered something for me from a systemic standpoint.
If you'll allow me to go first, I could say a couple of quick things. So there are, no, that's fine. There are screeners. So our curriculum coordinator, Paula O'Sullivan, does provide screeners, the U.S. number sense screeners, which are vetted and very strong. The scope of them, for what I was looking for and for what teachers were looking for, it wasn't quite wide enough, and that's why we went out. So there is something in use in the district that is very trusted, and I know a lot of educators use it. What I said about iReady, you know, everyone knows about all the lawsuits and all of the things going on. I personally have found iReady to be very valuable in 2 ways. First of all, when we talk about it as a staff, we say use it as a compass, not a GPS. Like, it'll point you in the right direction for a student, but it's not going to give you that super specific actionable data that you need to meet the student at the edge of their proficiency. And so basically when we look at iReady data, we look at it as a prompt to do more assessment to get that specific information we need. Also, in the correlation that I've done, and also the correlation that I've seen people at Central have worked on, iReady and MCAS have a very close correlation. And so I do believe that sometimes the parent reports make proficiency look a little inflated on iReady, but it is a very, very good assessment tool to track growth of specific students or groups of students. And the other thing is the personalized learning has played a big part in that story I was telling earlier. When we first started using the personalized, the path on iReady this year, I don't always love those kinds of tools, but what it did is it gave students who were on grade level and who had shown proficiency with the current content something for them to work on while teachers were starting to pull those small groups and those individuals and starting to work with the students who needed extensions. At this point in the year, teachers are mainly assigning specific lessons because that's something you can do in iReady. You don't have to just have students follow a path. You can assign them specific lessons. And so teachers are using it in a more and more targeted and strategic way in that regard. And I was not a fan before, and now I feel pretty good about using it.
All right. follow-ups? Great.
The only
Superintendent?
thing I would say is I totally agree on the assessments of the shortfalls or the need to actually have the science and the art around teaching if there is the tool, and also there are some limitations. I feel exactly the same way when I use iReady when I was a teacher, is that yes, it's a great tool for X, Y, and Z, but the edge of the learning, that is, you need to have a more subtlety as to knowing the kids' needs. So I totally, fully agree with that assessment.
Thank you. Member Green?
Thank you. First of all, I echo Vice Chair Batone's point about the readability, and I sympathize with you as someone who literally had a boss of mine once give me back a spreadsheet I had made for work with the question, "Are you colorblind?" Because it was that garish and hard to read. So I feel you on that. That said, through the chair, I think to the district as a whole, to the superintendent, building on Chair Ackman's questions about longitudinal data within our district, I was wondering if something we could think about as a perhaps medium-term data project could be really looking holistically at, like, are there variances in the high school experience based on the K-8 or K-5 schools they attended? And I mean, not just in terms of like test scores, which we know the big predictor is economic status, but like participation in extracurriculars, leadership opportunities. Like, I think that's useful data, not in a accountability sense, but in a, one, are there things our schools are doing well, but also, are we actually being equitable when it comes to opportunity, et cetera, in ways that can show up once the communities mingle more? Just putting that out there, something we want to look at. Again, probably more medium term than short term, but something I think would be really useful and really help us curate the KA experience.
Thank you. All right. Principal Ames, thank you. Deep appreciation for your wonderful presentation.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to highlight the fact that the spirit of making sure that teachers have that opportunity to become researchers in the classroom, to rethink about how do we address Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 in a space in which you can develop those tools, is one thing that I think that brings to mind the idea that we are a learning organization, and thinking about resetting and supporting the teachers' efforts in making sure that we can address the students' needs in the classroom is quite an awesome thing to do. So I would love to continue to visit the Brown to learn from that experience. So thank you very much for your efforts, Mr. Ames. No problem. Thank you. Okay, and now we're shifting gears. So I know you three have busy lives outside of this, so you're welcome to step out if you need to. But we're shifting gears, and as you know, we have in your memo a school climate safety. In your packet, you have a school climate safety memo. And in that memo, we stated that we are engaging multiple stakeholders to develop an MOU with the SPD to determine what are the best way we can support our schools via the potential placement of an SRO in our high schools. So I also have to say, I think that the easiest thing for us or for me to address this issue is to do nothing. I know that you have known the complexity of managing that situation and the balance between law enforcement and not having support in the buildings in times of crisis. And I'm not naive to the history that has been in place around this. So I know that this has been a process that has been fraught with complexities, and I am coming in humbly to share with you that we want to respond to the needs of the high school principals who have come to us and said, hey, can you help us address these challenges? So I'm bringing the same question to you, not as an approval process, but just to be a thought partner and understand where we're coming from as we're looking into a very complex subject matter. You have a memo in front of you, and I think that what I'll do right now is open the conversation for discussion around this.
Member Petone and then Member Green, and then Dr. Stallman. Sure, Member.
And he was a member of the...
Okay. Green, Petone, then Stallman.
Thank you. Actually, to that point, it's worth acknowledging the last time we visited this body, we had a long-term interim police chief who, for whatever reasons, was never in a position where they could agree to terms, to put it simply. I think in the presence of new leadership at the police department, leadership that has a history of navigating complicated community relations, it is absolutely, and just again, it's always worth revisiting things periodically to see where we have changed as a community, as a district, as policies. So it makes sense to me to reopen the conversation, see where SPD is now, and see if there is ways in which we can improve on things. The balance between security and welcoming spaces, or whatever you want to say, is always in flux. And so it makes sense to me to look at it again with fresh eyes and with eyes open, and not to prejudge the outcome until we have the conversation.
Thank you. Member Petone, and then Member Stallman.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have a few questions, and I'll just start with some framing, and then I'll defer, and then if I can chime back in, that would be great. I was glad that Member Green spoke first, because he had really originally initiated the policing subcommittee, and I started to kind of drill down into the Google Drive and try to see if I could find, all the details of what we had done and what had transpired. And there was a recommendation made in 3 years ago, and that was March of 2023. And that recommendation, was very specific around not having a school resource officer, but having something called a school liaison officer. And there's a lot of detail, and so I'm not saying that that's where we should be now. I agree with Member Green that, the community has probably evolved since that point. And I also don't want to minimize if the high school or Next Wave Full Circle and or are both identifying that there's some challenges happening they feel that are beyond the scope of their authority, and there's some concerns about safety. I'm supportive of something moving forward, but I guess my point to the administration is, how is that being considered, those original recommendations in 2023, which the school committee at the time did support? And I'm not saying that's what we should do, but I'm curious if that has been part of the conversation.
Sure. Member Green, as a follow-up?
Just to be clear, those recommendations, which, yes, I think school committee did express at least preliminary support for, were the recommendations that, for whatever reasons, the then leadership of SPD just could not say yes to at the end. So to follow up on that point, I would hope that would be, for us, a starting place for that conversation. As these are terms we wanted and you wouldn't give us, but hopefully now we can look at that again.
Thank you. Member Petone, do you have a separate question? Are you getting back in the queue?
I come back in the queue.
Great.
I don't want to take up all your...
Appreciate it. Dr. Stallman.
Thank you, through the chair, and through the superintendent, I would love to hear, obviously we don't need specific details, but just as a new school committee member, what are the sort of general things that that our police department can bring in this, can help with the complexity? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
So in our new chief of police, Benford, I feel that Bedford Shumane, we have identified a couple of things. I think he is a person who has shared experiences with our students in terms of how challenging it is to be able to have a sense of belonging in spaces in which you are a minority. So one of the things that he brings into that conversation is his assurance that he understands that dynamic. And I think that he has been an open partner in that conversation. I think if you look at the reference here that we are using the model MOU as a reference, it will provide you some guidance as to what are some of the boundaries around that. But again, we are counting with a willingness to actually embark on a decision that can look different, that needs to be grounded in our experience and also in our reality. And so I am very open to both have something that meets the needs of, again, the model MOU, but also responds to the needs of the district. And, with our grounding and framing around equity and diversity. So that is a very general statement, but I think that you can, again, look into the model MOU that we cited in our document as a reference.
I'm going to call on myself to follow up, and then you can ask a follow-up question. So one of the things that I will say is sort of in addition to what the superintendent said in my own meeting with the high school principals, and please do not consider anything I say verbatim. It is a broad paraphrase at best. But the way it was presented to me is that students at Somerville High School in full circle deal with Somerville police. It doesn't happen every day possibly, but it happens. And when there isn't sort of one connection point, it can be less safe overall because it can, there isn't a consistent officer responding, and not every officer is trained the same way. And so there is a theory, like the idea is, again, digging in, finding the right role, having it in line with the model MOU, having this person have some amount of accountability to the principals, is the goal, is to sort of see if that is possible. And where I pushed the principals on is they have an idea of what they want based on the model MOU, is, they're, working with their school improvement team, they're working with their students, they're working with, not just the elected students, but the students who, might have likely more interaction with police. And where I asked them is to be, in those conversations, be open to this idea, this vision that you have may not actually be what they think, And so part of why we have a memo now is to tell you, to inform the body that this is happening, but also at some point, if the ask gets made, they're going to have data from students, from the community, and the commitment has been made that they're going to bring that to us, in order to make the ask for, again, the funding for a school resource officer. So I hope that adds a little bit to it. Okay, Dr. Stillman. Then, go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you, Chief of Staff Omar Anasike. I just wanted to add to that our principal, Principal DePasquale, she's had a school resource officer, so it's not only just a theory, they've had experience with it, and they have had experience without it as well. We are currently relying on SPD on almost a daily basis, and being able to do that in a coordinated fashion is really the impetus behind this, this shift.
Thank you. We're going to go Stellman, then Green, then Patone.
Thank you. This is exactly what I was hoping to hear, and given the strength and community-focused and expertise and his own experiences, I think Chief Bedford is fantastic and has spent a lot of time with his team figuring out how to work closely with communities across the city. I have seen it, and I'm very excited in the sense that our principals are asking for something, and we can actually give it to them. And I also just, this perfect segue, it's not just that that Chief Bedford is a really strong police chief, particularly for Somerville, but it's also the interaction that he has with the mayor's office, which is perhaps a little bit different right now. And I think that this feels, for me, really strong, and I really appreciate my predecessors who have been working on these committees, because it is very complex. But this personally feels, or from my school committee hat on, this feels like a very good decision.
Thank you, Member Green, and then Member Patone.
Thank you. As you're having these conversations and as people are looking at potential policies, I'm going to ask, there was a question we would ask routinely during the policing subcommittee conversations that, frankly, we never got a good answer from SPD or, frankly, from the high school, that I'm going to re-ask, which is, what is the problem we're trying to solve where the answer to the question is an armed officer based in the schools? Like, I don't think anyone reasonably thinks there should be no communication between SPD and SPS. So if we're advocating the return of an armed, uniformed SRO, I would need an explicit answer to the question, what is the problem that is the solution to? And I was never able to go in the last time, so I'm really curious if there's one this time.
Chief Anasike.
Through the chair, so just a couple weeks ago, there was a swatting incident at the high school, for instance, and we had the SWAT team come to make sure everybody was okay. We are very grateful to SPD in that situation. We've had it several times in my tenure. It would have been really helpful to have a point person in the building to support our administrators when they were navigating that. That's just one example, but there are several examples of relying on SPD when they're coming into the building. And so having somebody on site, whether or not they're in uniform, that's something that we can figure out in an MOU. I'm not sure that's necessary. But there are several factors that have led our administrators to believe that it would be helpful for them, given that they're being asked to do things beyond what they're trained to do.
Thank you for that, and respectfully, I think my response to that would be, and this is the question, that speaks to the need for greater coordination between SPS and SPD, certainly, and I'm glad we're working on that. But if we're going to return an armed, uniformed officer to the school, which is what an SRO by law is, I need to know why that's the solution, as opposed to some other form of communication and coordination with SPD.
Okay. My recommendation is that question be shared with the principals.
Yeah, so, we probably can have that conversation. They can make a more compelling case. But I just will speak to the idea of community. I think that when it comes to safety, I mean, just the issue, the example of the SWAT team, is that right? This was just, what is it they call it when they do this over the phone? No? Swatting, yeah. So swatting, yeah. So that's just the case in which there's a low risk, is that right? But we don't know. And so the way those police showed up, it was through a 911. It wasn't not even through our SPD police. It just comes in all directions. When you have someone internally who actually can direct that presence, it will eliminate multiple things. It also will eliminate threats internally that we don't know. And I think that technical knowledge often is one that allows the community to have a greater sense of safety. And I just would say also that, again, we're talking about matters that can be require a very quick response, and I don't want to. What I'm noticing from our leaders is that we put them in difficult situations often, and I think that's one thing that we want to also address. And so I don't know if that's the smoking gun that we're looking for that will convince everyone to say, well, that is such a compelling argument. But as it is, we load our administrators with multiple responsibilities. And this is one of those. And so let's look at data also. You know, there are districts that actually have done, we are one of the only ones within our cohort of schools that doesn't have an SRO. And just comparing Boston and Cambridge for, almost 5 years, they haven't had any incidents of arrest or citations, and I cited that in the memo. So I think that, yes, that is something we need to demonstrate, a very compelling argument for the need, but I also think that we are over-indexing on the idea that we have to have such a smoking gun to determine, yes, this is the reason. And I can also cite on the other end that the data is showing very convincing argument to give it a try, or to think about what do we need to respond to our leaders who are asking for some support around that. But I think that I hear you. I think it will be good to have the principals come in and share some of their arguments.
Member Padon, and then Member Eldridge.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you to everybody who's engaging in this conversation. For context, it was a very contentious conversation 4 years ago. There was a lot going on in the world, nationally, and we owe to our community a very thorough and public conversation as we move forward. And I think that's really where this is coming from, at least from my perspective. I'm not trying to put the administration right now on the spot. I'm more trying to frame it and acknowledge that it was a tough time now, and if we're going to make a significant shift, I want to make sure that we're really being very public and transparent about it. So the first thing I really would like, at least for a school committee member, and provide some history, is that, I don't know if it's something in the drive, but like the original recommendation from February 2023 to make that available to all the school committee members so they know what came about. There was a memo in June of 2023 that came from one of our lawyers, Paige Tobin, that talked about a little bit around the scope of the responsibility of the school committee versus the superintendent. Exactly what Member Green said, which is, the why, the data, whatever we can get to sort of give us this framing. I acknowledge and totally understand, want to make sure everybody here understands, the superintendent has authority to do an MOU, period. School committee has no authority to stop that. However, we can provide advisory guidance. So let's make sure, I guess that's the second thing, is make sure there's process that if we want to weigh in on something or we have concerns as a school committee member, obviously the superintendent has the authority to not take our guidance, but I think, again, it's going to add to that more open, transparent process. And so history, process, and the third thing is, I do think that the school committee probably needs a little more clarity around what our possible authority is from a policy standpoint. Because from what I understand, there is scope around whether or not the district budgets for a school resource officer. I think in the past it didn't come out of the school budget. I could be wrong. I think it came out of the city. So there are ways through this. And again, I'm not coming at this saying that I want to say, I'm not going to pay for this. I'm not saying that at all. But again, framing all this. I understand that there's a possibility school committees can be very clear about criteria around training and require that a certain type of training, we put that in our policy. I think Mass General Law, but we can also put in our policy being very, very clear that resource officers, if that's the path you guys decide to go on, which I know is not necessarily, have no role in discipline, and being really clear about where the scope of that is, as well as the last thing I understand is school committees possibly can ask for different types of reporting. So there's very specific annual reporting that the district is required to do with DESE, but if we as a school committee, as a body, want to have more frequent reporting or different things reported on, we have that authority. So again, this is what I understand from, not deep research, but some research, but that's something I think that we need, and I think because we have lawyers, I think that would be a really beneficial thing. So I guess unless other members of the body are not comfortable with this, I'd like to ask our council to give us whether or not the Page-Tobin memo is good enough, or whether or not there's more that they want to add in terms of what our scope, and whether or not the things I've listed are really relevant or not. So again, clarity around roles and responsibilities, an open and transparent community conversation, and being really, really thoughtful, as Member Green said, about our whys and the data that we're looking at. Again, not necessarily saying that it's not the right thing to do, because I have a lot of trust in our leadership and our school building leadership from our high school and Next Bay Full Circle. If something is going on that they feel like they need more support, I'm hearing that. But to make such a significant shift on this is not something that we want to fly under the radar. We want to make sure we're doing all our homework. So thank you.
So thank you for that. I totally agree, and you're right. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 37P, yes, the superintendent has the jurisdiction to do that. But all this stuff that you mentioned, the funding actually is one of those things that you hold that piece of the, that's your decision. And then the other piece around best practices are absolutely all of the above. Is like making sure that we're transparent, making sure that we're clear about the why. I think that is an excellent question. And again, we are not coming in to this matter as an issue of a political issue. We are being practical about how do we make sure that from the data that we have, we're able to respond to a need that is being raised. And we actually, in the memo, mentioned that on a yearly basis, we will definitely have to report on these things, and it's in our best interest. I do not want any of our students to end up with a criminal record because we made a mistake around how we manage discipline. That will be the last thing we want to do. So I totally agree, and I don't think that you need a deep dive into the laws around this, but I think best practices compels us to be as transparent as possible, and also, you hold the strings of the budget, so keep that in mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Member Eldridge, and then Member Green.
Thank you. Through the chair, I appreciate the context. I was going to ask exactly what Member Patone was asking, just a little bit more information to ground myself in this discussion. Could we have a little bit more information in terms of like a timeline? I see that you're looking for focus groups in May and June. You're working towards that, and that there'll be annual reportings with August. But could you maybe provide a little bit more clarity around like what kind of timeline we're looking at? It'd be really helpful.
Through the chair, we are just now initiating, as you said, planning the focus groups. We're having semi-informal meetings beginning with SPD around the MOU, but of course we wouldn't be able to move forward without getting the data back from those groups. There's also the budget aspect of this, so we don't imagine that we would actually, if we were to place an SRO, that would happen by the beginning of next school year. I think having this earmarked at least by December is a goal for us. And again, we anticipate, again, we'd have to talk to the mayor and SPD, but we anticipate this coming from potentially their budget anyway. But that's something that might get in the way of what the timeline might be about when that's budgeted.
Member Green?
I also, building on Ms. Patone's requests for information, I would also encourage you to reach out to Worcester, which adopted a plan very similar to the one we tried to adopt and SPD wouldn't agree to, and see how their experience has been in a more challenging district, frankly, than ours, having adopted that plan 4 years ago now. So I think, examples of paths not taken do exist, other than a return to the status quo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this robust discussion. Superintendent, is that it for the district report?
Thank you for your attention and the thought process in this complicated matter. That brings my report to conclusion.
All right, thank you. We are moving on to Roman numeral 6, reports from subcommittees. We had a finance and facilities report for April 8th. Do I have a motion?
I move to accept the report from the Finance and Facilities Meeting of the Whole for April 8th.
Second.
All right. We have a motion by Member Bitton, seconded by Member Lippens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposition? Any abstention? All right, motion passes. We are moving on to unfinished business. Is there an MSBA update, Superintendent?
Yes, let me just share with you where we are. As you know, we submitted the first half of the MSBA Module 3, and that was basically what they call the preliminary design program. That was submitted in March, but that included the educational program as well as the space summary. So you actually helped me review that. You provided some great points of reference, and that was submitted to the MSBA. So we are in the next part, which is Perkins Eastman is working on submitting the actual the preferred schematic report, and also the revisions that have to come from the educational program that we submitted. So once those come back, we will review them and then we'll send them back. But it's my understanding that in August, we need to have your approval before we submit the final complete Module 3. And I don't know if we have a date in August to do that. And so
We do not have a date. You'll be getting an email from me. I mean, the good thing about it is that, it will likely be fully virtual, and so we don't need to have it be a Monday necessarily, as, we tend to do when we're in person here. But yes, that week of August 17th, if enough of us will be available, we will need to find that time, but we can settle that via email. Yes, I'll leave that there.
So that's the report. I don't know if there are any questions around that. I know that with the preferred schematic that we submitted, or that we're about to submit, had some adjustments that we made because we decided not to submit it on some facilities or some locations that was not needed. So I think that was a win on our side, that we were kind of determined to go to the next phase. But that's where we are. And my understanding is that the corrections that might have to be done are somewhat minimal on our end. So.
Thank you. Member Pitone, sorry.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just want to make yet another plug that the city of Somerville has a website, somervillemass.gov/new school. There are still events that are happening. I know that on May 11th at 5:30 to 7:30, there's going to be another community design workshop for the new school focused on community programs. So again, anybody who really is interested and excited about this new school and wants to get plugged in, I highly recommend this website because it's going to have the most update information and show up to the workshop. It's hopefully going to be great.
Thank you for that. And just to highlight, the focus of that one is just on, the workshop is around community spaces, especially for those that are outside of the traditional school day. But thank you. That was part of my message. That's Monday 11 at 5:30 at the top building. So, thanks.
All right. Member Green?
So, I know that because of the school building committee's decision to only pass along 920 seat proposals, that the August meeting may need less prep work than we originally thought. But I'm still going to say that any documents that members may need to read, if it's at all possible for us to get them before we summer recess, that will make our lives much easier.
That is, when I started and stopped, that is my goal. Truly, deeply, that is my goal. So yes, I'm hoping to have as much information by the end of the academic year, by our final meeting, even if it is in draft form. The consultants and Director Raish are well aware and very on board. And, there's a chance that it will be in pretty good shape by then. Depends on MSBA, and that's always fun. Anything else? Okay. All right, on to Roman numeral 8, new business. So I might bounce a little bit to just knock some low-hanging fruit off and then go into items that are more substantive. Let's go to A, March bill rolls.
Motion to approve the March bill rolls.
Second. All right, motion by Member Patone, seconded by Member Betone. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, March bill rolls passes. The SEU prevention accretion side letter. Do I have a motion?
Motion to authorize the chair to sign the substance use and prevention accretion SEU side letter.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Member Patone, seconded by Member Green. Any comments? Oh, Member Patone.
Just the one brief comment that this is to add a position to the SEU contract, which is a substance use and prevention position, not that we're going to accrete substance use itself, so.
Thank you for clarifying.
That's a very different contract.
All right, thank you for clarifying. That's very important. Any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Now we have a change of title side letter. Do I have a motion?
So move to authorize the chair to sign the side letter.
All right. I have a motion by Member Green, seconded by Member Patone to authorize the chair to sign the SAA change of title side letter. Thank you to our partners in the union for working with us on this. Are there any comments? All right. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Okay. I'm going to skip over D and E now. We're going to go to field trips. I do want to note that that first field trip is to Houston, Texas, and not to Houston, Massachusetts. I just want to be sure that whoever notes it says that, and then we will go to E and then D after that. Do I have a motion on the field trips?
Chair, I move to approve the following field trips. from April 29th to May 3rd, 2026 for 10 students from Somerville High School Robotics Team 6201 Woot Woot to attend the first robotics competition in Houston, Texas to compete in the World Championships. The World Championships. Travel via airplane, student cost $500. And on May 16th, should be 2026, to May 17, 2026, 32 students from Somerville High School to attend the GX Ultimate Frisbee in Northampton, Massachusetts to compete in the PVF tournament. Travel via van, student cost $0. And on June 8th, 2026, 45 8th grade students from West Somerville Neighborhood School to visit Canopy Lake Park as an end-of-year celebration. Travel via school bus, student cost $0. I'm just realizing I should recuse myself from that item. If I should,
All right, so we'll do the first two.
First two, that's fine.
All right, so thank you for being thoughtful about that. All right, so we have the April 29th robotics, the May 16th ultimate frisbee. Any comments? Member Green?
Out of curiosity, when we say World Championships,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I didn't get a second. Member Bitone, thank you, sorry. Go ahead, no.
when we say World Championships, do we mean like the Olympics or the World Cup, or do we mean like the World Series? Where it's really the national championship, it's the only country that does it, it's the World Championship. I don't think it's what I mean, I'm just deeply curious.
Do you have an answer?
Thank you, through the chair. I appreciate the follow-up because the sports reference went right over my head. So I was like, I don't know the difference. I do believe it's the world, teams from all over the world. Dr. Stellman, it looks like you might, yeah.
I only know that it's international because my nephews who used to go to East Somerville but moved to California, their fancy school did not qualify. Sorry if my brother and sister-in-law are listening, but it was a fierce competition. So I just want to put out there that across the entire United States, it was sort of like the ceramics award that just incredible. So congratulations, and so proud of our school system. From it started at Capuano and all the way up.
All right, Dr. Boston.
And just as I have people listening live, so that is correct. It is a world championship, and when we say world, we mean world.
I also just wanted to thank our community partners who have been frantically fundraising to make sure that that $500 cost is not a privilege.
Mayor Wilson?
Chair, I was going to make that point about the folks who are stepping up to make sure that students can actually afford to attend this. And I do see here it says attendees from 66 countries. So,
hot diggity. All right. That's on the record. All right, so we have a motion for 2 field trips, the robotics team going to Houston, Texas, and the ultimate frisbee team going to Northampton, Massachusetts. Motion by Member Bitone, seconded by Member Petone. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, I'm going to give Member Bitone a moment to recuse himself. Do I have a motion on the June 8th?
Move to approve.
Field trip.
I'm not going to repeat it. Move to approve.
All right, I have a motion by Member Green, seconded by Mayor Wilson. Member Green?
This is to the district, and just I think in terms of when we talk about field trips and more generally, I know this is a beloved tradition, our schools do it, but I really would love to at some point to really get a picture of who goes versus who doesn't go. So when we're thinking about like, is this, we're talking about field trip equity, which is a term we've used a lot this year. Who goes versus who doesn't go is always an important question to me. I'd just love to know, when we look at this tradition, is it really a tradition for everybody?
Davis.
Thank you, through the chair. Just as a point of clarity, when you say who goes, meaning which schools go?
No, I think which.
No, I mean, which, like, the student profiles. And again, it's not an immediate thing. It's like, going forward, like, when we have the conversation this time next year, I'd love to be doing it with some context.
All right, we have a motion for students from West Somerville Neighborhood School going to Canopy Lake Park. Motion by Member Green, seconded by Mayor Wilson. Any further comments? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Member Bitone, you're welcome back. Thank you. All right, don't get too out of breath because we have a resolution for Member Bitone that should you have it pulled up, I will ask you to read because this is our first reading. Go whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Before I read it, I want to just say this is something, I started working on months ago as I saw the Kennedy schoolyard process working through and was simultaneously excited for this new opportunity and bewildered that we were just starting now a process to design a truly inclusive, universal design schoolyard that every student has the opportunity to access equitable play opportunities and feel like they belong there. And then we had the conversation in this room around the new Winter Hill School building, and we had representatives from Perkins Eastman present about how we are going to intentionally design this space so that all students can access it. And I thought, well, I need to wrap that in. And then I shared an early draft with some advocates, one of whom is here tonight, and I'm so grateful. And they contributed meaningfully to helping to improve it. I feel like now is the time for this because now is when we're starting to think about this in a serious way. And I can think of nothing better than though we have no authority over what buildings we build and what schoolyards we build, I feel like this is a great time to endorse these practices as a body. So thank you for indulging me. So resolution supporting inclusive design for all Somerville school buildings and schoolyards. Whereas inclusive design is a proactive approach that ensures the built environment is welcoming, usable, and accessible to all people, regardless of physical, cognitive, sensory, social, emotional, or developmental differences. And whereas school buildings and schoolyards must serve and support a diverse student population, including multilingual learners and students with disabilities and varied developmental needs, with inclusive, responsive, and accessible spaces that go beyond simple compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Excuse me. And whereas students with and without disabilities mutually benefit from shared spaces that enable interaction and participation, and whereas both indoor educational spaces and outdoor play environments are essential for child development across all ages and abilities, and whereas inclusive school design affirms every child's right to fully and meaningfully participate in all aspects of school life and contributes to broader goals of instilling confidence, self-worth, and community belonging. And whereas the project to replace the Winter Hill School building and the planned schoolyard redevelopment project at the Kennedy School represent meaningful progress in inclusive design practices in Somerville. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Somerville School Committee strongly recommends that all future Somerville school buildings and schoolyard projects incorporate inclusive design principles and features to the maximum extent practicable. Resolved that the Somerville School Committee encourages all relevant city departments, committees, and commissions, including the Mayor's Office, Somerville Public Schools, School Building Committee, Special Education Parents Advisory Council, CPAC, Commission for Persons with Disabilities, SCPD, and the Departments of Public Space and Urban Forestry, PSUF, Racial and Social Justice, RSJ, and Infrastructure and Asset Management, IAM, to collaborate fully in all schoolyards, to collaborate fully in all school and schoolyard building projects with inclusion as a central design principle. Resolved that copies of this resolution shall be shared with the entities listed above to support coordinated implementation and mutual accountability. Resolved that the superintendent will provide updates to the school committee as needed about the coordination of inclusive school building and schoolyard design projects.
Thank you. All right, this is first reading, so Member Green?
First, I want to thank Member Tung for bringing this up. And I want to say this is a place where we have, as a district, grown. I remember as we were building the Healy playground, the last new schoolyard built in this district. There were several student focus groups, and the thing that the students requested more than anything was they wanted a playground that all of their friends could use. And so they did include ideas of universal design in the Healy playground. I'm sure it was not done perfectly, as I say about our new school buildings and our new school playgrounds. My hope is always that the next one will be the best one ever. And I think stating that as a goal for the new Kennedy playground, for the new Winter Hill playground, is right and appropriate. So I'm glad we're going to do this. I also think, in the same way that the high school is currently the most accessible building in the district, I hope that is my hope. I'm on the school building committee, and I know that every single conversation we've had so far, including, again, the decision to only put forward 920 C buildings, was based on the idea that that was the best way to deal with the fact that we do have still accessibility problem in the district, and we have an opportunity to solve those. And I believe that is, again, I think every single conversation about what the new Winter Hill should look like, access to the building, to resources, and to play spaces has been central. So I'm thrilled that we can explicitly state that to be the policy of our district. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Persone, for bringing that up.
Dr. Stillman, and then Member Eldridge. Oh, sorry, Member Eldridge and then Dr. Stillman.
Thank you. Through the chair, this was fantastic to read, so thank you so much, Member Bitone, for putting this forward, and for all the advocates that supported it. I love when we bring voices most affected to the table, and I think that's really important there. I appreciate the intentionality behind it, and I think it does a really great and important job of grounding us in the idea that inclusive design is about creating environments that truly work for all students. As I was reading it, I couldn't help but think about some of the educators and administrators and families and community members that have reached out to help me better understand specific ways in which our spaces have yet to be inclusive. I say yet because I am hopeful. With those voices in mind, the word safety doesn't explicitly appear in this resolution, but I think it's important that when we talk about inclusive design, we're also talking about safety addressed by the design of the physical environment as a core part of that work too. Inclusive design means anticipating the needs of our students, but it also means asking what kinds of supports and safeguards are necessary for students to safely access all parts of the school day, school building, and school grounds. So my request would be to specifically use the term safety in this resolution. But long story short, I'm really excited about it. I'm really grateful for it and what it means for our students and Somerville as a whole when it comes to inclusivity.
Bitone?
I would welcome if you would send me a specific edit to include that. I am very open to that. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, Dr. Stillman.
I echo the kudos for Member Bitone. I think we have to keep building inclusivity physically into our spaces, and as our technology increases and our ability to understand the different needs of people, that's clear that this is necessary. I want to just piggyback on what Member Eldridge said about the fact that what I think is meant by how do we think about the definition of inclusivity, and why the concept of safety has to be in there. So when I think of safety as having been in schools for most of my adult life, well, actually, I guess most of my life, and so what's interesting is how much safety many of us just take for granted in schools when it comes to running down the hallways, or making your way down the hallways, or being able to access toys, or different things that are just so natural that we don't often think about that. But also from a safety perspective, I was really taken by the Somerville CPAC's letter about AIM program relocation safety concerns. And it was really interesting to me that I made the connection in terms of safety inclusivity through this letter because of this concept of elopement. And it's funny because you've created a space in these areas in which able-bodied, non-dysregulated students have an understanding of where that safe boundary is. And when I was thinking about what are the challenges for safety, that makes a playground inclusive. And for me, having two kids and one was often a runner, it's good exercise for me, but not super inclusive when you are in a space like that. So I will be happy to send Member Bitone some wording that we might be able to take into effect. And I just want to also, I know we have parents here who spoke really beautifully. Thank you for that. And I hear the pain and joy that happens being a parent, but in particular to being a parent of a kid who is not in the norm, and it's for many of us who have had that is challenging. And so I'm really excited about inclusivity and expanding on what was an aha moment from the parents who were brave enough to come forward and share their stories.
Member Bitone.
Thank you through the chair. Just a quick thank you to Member Bitone for bringing this forward. I also want to thank members for enthusiastically engaging this conversation and wanting to contribute. So I think our best work is always our inclusive work in terms of everybody in the body as well. I also just wanted to make a note for everyone who may be listening, if this resolution does pass at our next meeting, because we usually have 2 meetings, it does get posted on our website, the Somerville Public Schools website. I just always want to make that notation. I'll say it next time too, but we have, under the school committee, there's a resolutions and statements. So if you ever want to see anything else that we've put forward or made clear statements about our values, it's there to be found.
Thank you for that. And I will wrap up by saying we do have another meeting a week from now. And so any feedback that you want to get sooner rather than later, because we will hopefully be voting on this in a week. All right. First reading of that is behind us. Thank you, Member Bitone, for your great work. We're going to go to Roman numeral 8, item D, appointments, first reading. So I learned from Kim Wells is still, what is her title now? Do you know, Lance?
She's both the Chief Administrative Officer and, at the moment, still City Clerk.
All right, we'll call her Officer Wells then. Officer Wells let me know that the body is expected to appoint community members that we will vote on to both the charter-approved Ranked Choice Voting Committee and the Public Financing of Campaigns Committee. Who we are putting forward for the Ranked Choice Voting Committee was Eleanor Barish and Jack Perinack, both who have ran for office in Somerville, one former school committee member. And the Public Financing of Campaigns Committee is Alana Krepshin, former school committee member, and Devin Moose, who was the president of East Somerville Main Streets, I think for 12 years, sometime around then. She's still on their board. She also notably takes the graduation photos for Full Circle every year and does a lot of community photography and is a very active community member. She took these beautiful photos. There, thank you. So I am really excited to appoint these community members or have us vote on these community members, but that's something we will do next week. I'm pausing in case there's questions or comments. Member Patone?
This is a question just in general about appointments. I know that we're going to have a student assignment group that is going to be convening, I think you said in September. I've had a couple people come to me saying that they were interested. I'm going to send that information your way. Obviously, there's a lot of things that you have to consider in terms of appointments, in terms of making diverse representation, and I just didn't know if that's the way we should move forward.
So before you send them my way, my understanding is that the district is in the process of sending out communique via all our channels, and that there are formal Google Docs that they should be submitting to, and then that gets aggregated, and that is, my understanding is that does someone know? It's gone out to some, all right. Daryl is the person who would know, and I will have answers for you by our next meeting. It should, I think most, if not all of us are SPS parents, and we should see it in some means of communication from the district by the end of the week. And then I will have more for you about that next week. Is that sufficient for now? Great. All right. We are moving on to Roman numeral 8, item G, acceptance of grant funds. Do I have a motion?
Chair, I move to accept all federal entitlement and continuation grants for, and all state continuation grants awarded to the Somerville Public Schools. As listed below, state grants, Metro North WIOA scale to the scale department, a grant increase of $52,295.93.
Second.
I have a motion by Member Bitone, seconded by Member Lippens. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Moving on to community or calendar items from committee members. All right, Member Patone.
Thank you, through the chair. I had a question about a topic that's been brought to me and brought to my attention regarding technology use. I know that Cambridge School Committee is going through a whole process and looking at both laptops and iPads, and so I would be curious what forum we might use to have that conversation here in Somerville. So whether or not that should come to regular, whether or not something to discuss in ed programs, something to discuss in rules, I don't know. But basically the overarching question is like, how should technology be used? It also could get into things like AI policy, and I just don't think we've tapped into that recently. And so because it's so prevalent right now in one community that's kind of our sister community, I think that we should ask these questions. So that's sending to you and the superintendent's administration to make a recommendation of how we might want to have this conversation.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick shout out to the Slice the City events that are starting up on Tuesday. This year we asked ward counselors to work with the school committee rep to find dates that hopefully work for everyone. So hopefully that means that people can come out and speak to both their ward counselor, some at-large counselors, the mayor, and their school committee rep at those dates. I will note the conflict that I already flagged for the comms department, which is that Monday, June 1st, which is scheduled for the Ward 2, Slice the City, goes up against commencement. So we're going to be looking to probably move that, hopefully.
Member Buton?
May I just follow up?
Yep.
I just want to extend my thanks. I may have done this already, but this is the coordination around the Slice of the City has been something that we on school committee have been asking for years, and I really appreciate the foresight in that engagement. I think it's a benefit to our whole community, so thank you.
Member Green?
I echo Member Tone's statement that this is something that's been requested for years. I will point out it's still deeply imperfect, and we should figure out how to systematize it. I think some members got more coordination than others. I think some members got more coordination than others, as evidenced by the fact that we managed to somehow schedule one on the commencement.
Okay. Thank you. All right. With that, Vice Chair Buton, we have condolences.
We do. The Somerville School Committee offers its deepest condolences to the families of Anthony Kaleri, retired, worked in the district from 1993 to 2007 as Human Resource Director of Somerville Public Schools, and Lawrence Larry Ilamello, retired, worked in the district from 1975 to 2008 as Head of Math and Science of Somerville Public Schools.
We're adjourned. Thank you.